अर्चना, हम घंटी से शुरू करते हैं सेशन। और हेलो एवरीवन, दिस इज सिनर्जी संडे सेशन फॉर March 2nd. Yay, we are in March finally. The light is at the end of the tunnel in Chicago. We are getting little more warmth and uh, thawing almost. So to start today's session, I'm introducing Dr. Archana Bandi, Biyani, from MGM 1987. And thank you, Nikhil, for referring me to Archana for this talk that we are looking forward to learning all about our microbiome, the biome gang. Over to Archana.
All right, namaste everyone. First of all, it's an honor to join all of you and to talk about something that's sort of become my passion. And it blends in with what I do in my clinical practice a lot. So I am a graduate, 87 की बैच से आप लोग सब मेरे सीनियर अनुराग और निखिल मेरे क्लासमेट हैं. Dr. Kakani has been well, people like to say I've been walking in his footsteps. He is my uncle, but his footsteps are too big to even keep on. So that's doesn't quite go there. But I've always looked up to him since I was a little kid. He's my mamaji. But having said that, 87 में medical school finish किया, and then I actually did ENT residency वहाँ पर, and that was a little secret why I did that for another day. And then फिर यहाँ US आके internal medicine में residency की, and then I did endocrine. And in past, I would say about 6, 8 years, I've been just so much interested naturally. So probably being an endocrinologist and how food plays a role, and not just by the spikes of glucose or rise of your cholesterol, not like in those minuscule way, but more integrally how this actually happens. And the science on gut biome has been exploding, and so that's where my interest came from. So here we are. I'll start. So first, I'd like to, just pay a small tribute to our ancients. Ayurveda, and our acharyas were way ahead of us before we started to think. So in Ayurveda, there is something called as upastambhas, the pillars, and the food, the diet is the main one, and then sleep the next upastambha. And if you read somewhere, Acharya Charak has been known to say that a man who lives on wholesome diet and controlled habits survives for 36,000 nights in a disease-free state, blessed by noble men. So 100 years was not so uncommon, I suppose, back then when they were talking about it. And Acharya Sushruta has been quoted to say that food determines the origin of beings, and it forms a chief source of their bodily strength, complexion, and the ojas. And then Hippocrates has been quoted to say that death sits in the bowels back in 400 BC. So, I mean, clearly we knew that gut is our way to a better life. So what I want to cover today really is first the basics of gut biome, second what is gut dysbiosis, and there is a lot of jargon around it. What's the pre, what's post, what's pro, what's symbiotic, and all that. And then just my personal experience, because I have now sort of made it part and parcel of my daily living, cooking, eating. These bottles that you see, these are bottles of kombucha that I made. If you ever want to try, it's pineapple lemon with mint. It was summer. So first, some basic definitions. So microbiome versus gut microbiome. So microbiome means just the genome of all microorganism, which is the community of all these fungi, bacteria, viruses that sort of live in a defined environment for us in or outside our tissues. And what is gut microbiome then on that is so let's talk about the gut microbiota. So all gut flora, that means all your bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungi, from your mouth all the way to your colon, consists the gut microbiota. And the genome of all this is called as gut microbiome. So just a quick rundown on how our gut microbiome is. So intestinal microflora. So there are a lot of cliches, well, not cliches, but frequently quoted statements like humans are 1/10, humans, and rest of it is just the other microorganisms, or how much of gene is really our gene and how much is encoded by the bacteria and other organisms that live on us. And there's some truth to that. So, over 1 trillion of those, but as you see, the concentration and the diversity of these increases exponentially as we go down from stomach, duodenum, and then through the small intestine all the way down to colon and appendix. So the dominating bacterial fingerprint, we all of us have some bacterial fingerprint, and it's very malleable, but it's called as enterotype. And the major division of the bacteria that can make this enterotype are Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. These are anaerobic bacteria, and gram-positive and gram-negative. I have to do a little bit of microbiology. Without that, the microflora doesn't work. So the enterotype of any healthy individual has mostly in some ratio of these three colonies: the bacteroids, the Prevotella, and Ruminococcus. And there is a general trend that as we go down, both the complexity and both the concentration of these bacteria increases. And so let's talk about how we acquire our gut biome. So the story starts when we are born. A fetus lives in a very sterile environment, but then depending on how the baby comes in the world, gives a kickstart to the gut biome or maybe a lack thereof. So the C-section, the kids born by C-section have what we find on our skin, so Staphylococcus and Corynebacterium and other group. While kids who are born via vaginal delivery and without an antibiotic given to mom, they get a sort of a jump start at the gut biome. These the major colonies, as they pass through, they swallow, and it kind of seeds their gut. Then as we start them on the solid food, you can see that the other bacteria start making appearance. But kids who are born by C-section and are not breastfed, they tend to have less diversity. So the breastfeeding also helps a baby acquire a better gut biome. And then as we get adult, all the environmental factors I'll go through start affecting this whole milieu of the gut biome. And that's where what we can do comes into play. So, whether you talk of allergies, use of antibiotics, all non-communicable diseases, so obesity, heart disease, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, all that has a very unique abnormality in their bacterial profile. So having said that, again, the same thing. So there's something called as vertical transmission and then horizontal dispersal. And this takes me to, our old way of living. So baby born vaginally versus C-section breastfed with antibiotic versus, and then horizontal dispersal. So when we lived in the large extended family, when we lived more close to each other, when the animals were part of our living, we just had much more diverse bacteria. And I'm not going to share any data on the geographic distance, differences in the gut biome of different people living in different part of the world, but there is huge science on that. So people living sort of like in industrialized nations, islands versus Western, the diversity just drops off rapidly. So let's talk quickly about what this gut microbiome does for us. So it helps with nutrient metabolism and absorption. So, I like to say, humans have always been good in outsourcing. All that we consume, we do not digest. But there is a lot in what we don't digest that we need. So this is the perfect symbiosis. We give home to these microflora in our gut, and they work for us. So if we don't take care of each other, we're not going to be good friends. But if we do, what happens is that a healthy microbiome degrades those indigestible polysaccharides. And those complex starches that our stomach and small intestine can't, and it generates very important short-chain fatty acids. They have important role in energy, the glucose metabolism, cutting down the inflammation, maintaining our immune function, and also maintaining that internal intestinal environment. They help with amino acid metabolism. And, as you may have heard, while probiotics can lead to mood elevation, sure, a good microbiome will generate tryptophan and it'll do that. And they help with bile acid and lipid metabolism. And so the further absorption of our nutrients. They help, the microbiome helps with intestinal homeostasis, motility, so irritable bowel syndrome, chronic constipation. And then the anaerobic environment helps maintain the integrity of intestinal lining. Further, they produce the vitamins. We can't make any, the majority of B complex is made in our gut. And when that doesn't happen, we end up taking the pills every day, the vitamin K and all other cofactor. And they maintain immune function by regulating the toll-like receptors. So what is gut dysbiosis? So when we lose the equilibrium in microbiota, that leads to gut dysbiosis. So there's always this balance of the good bacteria versus bad bacteria. And what happens is that these beneficial microorganisms, when they become less abundant, the environment is not as anaerobic as it's needed for healthy gut. And as a result of that, these pathogenic bacteria start flourishing. So without going in much physiologic detail of it, there is a thin mucin barrier that line our gut, especially our large intestine. When we have gut dysbiosis, that mucin barrier either loses its health or breaks down. And a lot of studies are going on in inflammatory bowel disease, and gut dysbiosis is being considered as a main factor. Their poor metabolism, it results in various deficiencies. It increases insulin resistance. So those short-chain fatty acids, they have a lot of role in our liver, healthy liver state and insulin resistance. Poor production of GLP-1. So yes, all these that you see on TikToks and Instagram of natural GLP. If you have good fiber intake, you naturally make GLP-1 through the microbiota, which helps you with satiety and food processing. And as a result of gut dysbiosis, people gain weight. And intestinal motility, there is a local and through the central nervous system, the neuromuscular operation of gut is closely related as to what gut microbiota does for us. So what are the contributors to dysbiosis? Basically, all that we do today. If we do not have healthy lifestyle, if our diet is unhealthy, if we live in stress, if we live in too much of hygienic environment, so this sterile environment is just an absolute disaster for developing a good intestinal microbiome. This rampant use of antibiotic, and in India, you can go to pharmacy and get a prescription for antibiotic, and that's a story in itself. And then Western lifestyle adaptation. So we all know that Mediterranean diet is excellent for cardiovascular health. And that's simply because it contains, just how it's structured: fruits, nuts, whole grain, vegetables, legumes, and healthy protein. It helps with the symbiotic nature health of microbiome, as opposed to the Western diet, and I'd like to say SAD. We call it SAD, Standard American Diet, and it's pretty sad because at the top of this pyramid that you see, the chronic disease pyramid, is exactly what most of the American diet, Western diet consists of. So the basically plant-based diet and the fats that come from the plant origin, they help your bifidobacterium, the lactobacillus, and the short-chain fatty acid-producing bacteria, where animal-based fats are disastrous for that. So let's talk about the language around this, the prebiotic, the probiotic, and postbiotic. So what are prebiotics? These are the foods that we eat, but we can't digest. So when we consume these food, they pass through our upper part of GI tract, undigested, and they reach the colon. But this is what becomes the food for our gut bacteria. So it's sort of like what symbiotic living is. I'm eating for myself, but I'm eating for you as well, my friendly gut bacteria. And they ferment these. So once these undigested food is fermented, the products that are generated, they help improve the colony itself and also help with the digestion. And through the local T-reg cell communication, they help improve the immunity, not just the locally, but the general immunity as well. They help make and maintain mucin. And that helps reduce the local inflammation, and it prevents what's been increasingly called as the leaky gut. Part of the story behind inflammatory bowel disease. And through the short chain fatty acid, the butyrates, the pyruvates, they help address the prebiotic, help address the root of metabolic syndrome through insulin resistance, and further onto obesity. And they basically lower the risk of non-communicable diseases. We're not dying anymore from anthrax or, Americans are dying from measles, kids, I should say, but majority of non-communicable diseases. So what are the sources of our probiotics? Really a wholesome diet. So whole grains, oats, fibers. So, back in the days, I would say 15, 20 years ago, when, eat oat every day, help your heart, have oats being the healthy heart food. It's the story is not so much in oats as it's in gut biome. The high fiber content of oat, when it goes through your gut, it has downstream effect. So are the legumes. The whole, हम लोगों की जो pantry है, someone once said that, what do you store for emergency? So I told her, Hamara pantry with the dry whole grain is such that I can live 6 months without worrying about food. The whole greens, the palak, the collard, sarso, and all that, onions, garlic, and leeks. So this whole family is very unique in having high quantity of inulin, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Banana, not your yellow ripe sweet banana, but more that is just getting ready to sweeten. That has the good fiber. Asparagus, apples, and these are just to name a few. So the prebiotic, what the secret is, these fibers, the insoluble fibers, the inulins, the fructooligosaccharides, which is found in the leeks and the banana and apple, galactooligosaccharides, which is found in dairy product and certain roots. So, we all may have heard that, people are lactose intolerant, but they can tolerate yogurt. And that's because the bacteria in the yogurt, bacteria that converts milk to yogurt, digests that sugar that makes people intolerant to the lactose. And the resistant starch, again, found in these root vegetables, not so much as these potato chips. You can't eat potato chips in the name of potato being good, but the potato with the skin, sweet potato, and things like that. Next, moving on to what are probiotics. So these are live, non-pathogenic microorganisms, and we can consume them. That helps improve the biodiversity of our gut microbiome. They help augment the colonies with the beneficial bacteria, and this just overall help with the functioning of gut biome. How do they work? They improve the chemical barrier, the biological barrier, they improve the immune barrier, and also the mechanical. I won't go through this and bore you with their actual functioning in the gut. But I'll leave these slides with Didi for if you're interested. What are the conditions when probiotics have been found to help? Well, our grandparents knew, our ancients knew that kisi ko, if they have diarrhea, give them yogurt. It's full of probiotics. So for prevention and treatment of diarrhea, now probiotics has become sort of a prescription to go along antibiotic. A little bit of yogurt goes a long way with an antibiotic treatment. They help address allergies, and there's some use of probiotic on topical eczema psoriasis treatment. They help in weight loss and metabolic syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome, again, by its work through the motility treatment of H. pylori by recolonizing with healthy bacteria, and they may assist in UTI and vaginal infection. So, what are the sources of probiotics? And I really wanted to bring here that how our ancients have been using the process of fermentation to augment and improve the food. So yogurt, every culture has it. Kefir from Middle East, sauerkraut, pickling the vegetable in some ways, buttermilk, cheese, kombucha. I make kombucha now at home. It's an ongoing process. Kombucha has replaced the glass of wine for Rupal. Kanji that Indians used to make. Kimchi is amazing. Miso from Japan. So I lay these things here because that helps you to use them and make a variety of probiotic in your dietary habit. So there's something to be used. You can see in the market things called as symbiotics being sold, pretty expensive stuff. What they do is they take the fiber of the probiotics, fiber of the prebiotics, and mix them with these lactobacillus found in natural food and then sell it as symbiotics. It's a perfect symbiosis if we can consume them in our routine diet. So just let's talk briefly about postbiotics. So the postbiotic is basically when these beneficial bacteria, when they work on food, they have this microbial output after their metabolism. And it's very rich in these fatty acids, the short chain fatty acids, the polysaccharides, generated vitamin, enzymes, and precursor peptide and amino acid. So again, ancient humans knew that there are certain type of food, if you could pre-process them with probiotics, when you consume them, they're easy on your stomach. So yogurt, cheese, kimchi, tempeh, miso, these are not just source of probiotics, but they also contain lots of postbiotic, partially digested, partially transformed food. So I will now share just some pictures from, this is just few from my collection, since I've started to be very mindful of incorporating high amount of fiber, root vegetables, protein from plant-based source, and then pairing that up with other sources of probiotics. So, here you see, this is lunch that I was packing and I took a picture. It's got black beans, some squash, some roots, some greens, avocado. This one in the red tray is a salad. My friends call me salad queen just because I just cannot serve gulab jamun. It's against my religion. I think gulab jamun should come with, a flag. It's injurious to your health. And I'm sorry I said it here to all those gulab jamun lovers out there. And just our regular food, if we can take a bowl of dal, put tons of greens in it, and have it a whole grain roti, multi-grain roti, it is a good source of fiber and protein. Again, a salad with lots of greens, some seeds, cabbage, sauerkraut. On upper right side, you see a bowl of lentil soup with feta cheese, sauerkraut on side, and a quinoa-based salad. I have really taken the wheat pasta out of our diet. So what you see here is a whole, it's just like lentil pasta, chickpea pasta, mixed with cheese and lots of greens and onions. And this is my very to-go breakfast on bottom right side, where there's a whole grain slice of bread with some cheese, lots of avocado, and then on top of it is sauerkraut. I mean, if you can start your breakfast with some of these elements, it gives your gut a good boost to start the day. I wanted to show this picture. When you buy kombucha from outside or any of these things from, at least in US, given the regulation, they all have to be pasteurized. So what you do get some of the postbiotics. For example, if you buy kombucha, um, or kimchi or tempeh. But what you don't get is these live active organism. Only one food where you can really rely that you are getting the lax, the live and active culture is yogurt. So this is my one day I was making kombucha, and you can see these floating colonies of lactobacillus. Um, it might sound icky to some people, but it really is what your gut needs. Back there is a bottle, a big jar. And if you see something floating there, that's called a SCOBY. It's called a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. What that does is when you brew the tea for kombucha and you put that symbiotic culture in it, it breaks down the tea and takes the polyphenols out of it. And it converts so all the good benefit of antioxidation, the antioxidants that tea has, is ingrained in that. And then with that, as these colonies of bacteria grow, they become another boost for your gut. What you're seeing in front is my second step of fermenting it with some kind of fruit to make it like a carbonated drink. Again, this on one side, you see my jars of kombucha, brewing. And on the other side, you see these bottles of juices. So people, juices, if you don't take them, the whole fiber are just a straight up sugar. But if you can truly be conscientious in the juice that you make at home and take as much fiber as possible from it and consume it, it is a good delivery of food for your bacteria in your gut. Again, going out in the nature, being in touch with all the moss that you see here on these rocks. These are all sources of what our ancient used to really naturally help their stomach with. So these are my kids and Rupal you see here. So Kush and Arushi, we love to take hikes. Having a pet, again, people who have pet have better microbiome just because when you live with them, you are exposed to more diverse type of microorganism. This is our dog in the middle. Her name is Zoe. And then spending time with friends and family and sharing love, and in some ways sharing our the parts of my microbiome. So this is all from me. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing. I can drop in this uh, references and slideshow for Didi. I am going to stop sharing. There we go.
Thank you, Archana.
I know I went very fast. I went very fast, but I
No,
wanted
that's
to.
wonderful. What a colorful presentation. Colorful and joyful to me. So I will hold my questions. I have about 5 or 6 for later. I would like to open up the mic to anyone who wants to come in and ask Archana. So my journey started from Nikhil's house where we had the kombucha shot, the cheers with the kombucha there. And they told me that it's Archana's recipe. So wonderful. Please
Thank
unmute yourself and ask anyone. You don't need to raise your hands. We have a small crowd, but a lot of people will be watching it later. Archana, that's our model for synergy sessions.
Yeah.
We don't go by the number, but the quality. And then
Okay, so first of all, thanks again, Chaya. What a beautiful way to involve the experts, and it is nice to see that. So is she from like 2 years younger to our batch? I mean, like
yes, Bharat, ये अर्चना अनुराग जो अपना अनुराग श्रीवास्तव अपने टॉक की उसी बैच की है रूपल
uh,
बंडी और सुधीर
uh,
मुंगी ये
acha.
लोग उसी 90s.
So I joined little late. Archana, did you talk about apple cider vinegar?
I did not talk about apple cider vinegar. That's
इसमें
in
भी mother वाला जो मैं पूछने वाली थी.
huh.
What do you say of
So
that?
yeah, so again, soy sauce, apple cider vinegar, all these fermented products, and you know what, sir? It's interesting how these acidic products that we take change our pH in some way, and they are known to alkalinize. And I think it all goes through the gut and the final processing of the consumption of, say, apple cider vinegar, yeah, from how it passes from your stomach and if it reaches your large intestine.
Yeah. So, I mean, so far, I mean, of course, this keeps changing, but since last year or so, two things that I don't call anything as a superfood really, but two things that I regularly consume are apple cider that I make at home, and roasted flax seeds with some other seeds.
Yeah.
So maybe, but then I believe that you need to also look into the amount if you're not taking fish or other sources.
Yeah.
Maybe flax seeds, at least 6 or 8 teaspoons, maybe 30 to 40 grams minimum, and chew them well. And you cannot keep them powdered. I think they because then the oil is they become oily. The powder becomes oily.
Rancid. Yeah, it becomes rancid. You know, sir, I mean, again, flaxseed, they contain those fibers that we cannot digest. So they end up in your large intestine, food for your bacteria that becomes. And then when I make kombucha, let's say when I'm traveling, my kombucha becomes a vinegar. It literally turns into
Mhm.
vinegar. So when we take apple cider vinegar, it's probably to that range of acidity. Um, when I got into it, I was measuring the pH of my kombucha to check
Really?
like how
No.
tart, like what does a tart kombucha that I like has a pH of. So apple cider vinegar is again on that same spectrum of acidic food, and if you leave and you because you make it at home, you probably know, but for the other in the audience, if we leave apple cider vinegar, soon there will be a tiny little SCOBY floating on it. So it's the same concept, really, of kombucha too.
Yeah.
I just
उससे
love because I
related.
can play with when I make kombucha, I can play with the flavors. I can, whatever is
Yeah.
in the season, is it the berries that are in the season, the pineapple, the tangerine and stuff? Yeah.
So what's the
Does it have
pH
to
you
be
look for?
empty stomach? Sorry, does it have to be taken empty stomach?
Oh no, the kombucha is. I didn't show the glass of wine here. It's we actually pour it with our food and take that. So no, not necessarily with empty stomach.
Because
Although
apple cider vinegar का बोलते हैं ना कि empty stomach लेने के लिए, तो I was wondering what's the logic of that? Dilute हो जाता है क्या?
So there are people who cannot tolerate empty stomach as well. I mean,
Hmm.
I take empty stomach first thing, but
But what's the
Anjali
logic?
does.
It has to be so it doesn't get diluted, or
I am not so sure about that.
so
Maybe.
there is that, yeah, that not everything survives the acid when it passes through with the food. So maybe मुझे ऐसा
hmm.
लगता है शायद we'll get lost in the nitty-gritty details if we make it a part of our daily routine,
Then it's easier to do.
then it's easier to do.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Exactly.
totally right.
Yeah. Dr. Kakani has view on
And
colonic wash.
you're on mute, Dr. Kakani.
Those people, they call it uh, something sanchalan, right? And that has been a yoga thing. So some of the gastroenterologists, of course, were using it as a bowel prep. So what happens when these, and some people go to these retreats and they do the colonic washes.
Yeah.
Now, what happens to the microbiome, gut microbiome with those colonic washes? What do you think?
Okay, so I'll call you Dr. Kakani. We have to take things in context. When you go for those Ayurveda retreat, there are many other steps to that. And often people go to these retreats for detox. And so I'm assuming that those who are going with, say, obesity, heart disease, and all that, they have gut dysbiosis. And I think somebody correct me here. It's Panchakarni. It's those 5-step program that many of these places offer. They have
Panchakarma.
Panchakarma. Yeah, they have Basti, and they through the retreat they give you type of food which helps you recolonize. So it's US has a really good way to take one thing out of it and market it and sell it, as this is what it's gonna do. So no, I wouldn't do colonic wash unless I'm actually at a well-known, reputed Ayurvedic center where the practitioner has been doing this for some time.
मैं पूछने वाली थी, इंडिया में भी तो बहुत फेमस है, साउथ में लोग जाते हैं डिटॉक्स और वेट लॉस और उसके लिए.
Right.
So I asked this question by the interestingly, Dr. Kakani. When I was taking this particular form of treatment or whatever you call, and I was told, and then I of course searched as well, that everything gets of course cleaned up, so your overall load of microbiome significantly reduces, but then that rapidly builds up again. And one of the theories that they make is this, that you want to reconstruct it in a better biome. So that's what I think their theory is. Whether it works or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
On my 50th.
Chayaji, can we have both these endocrinologists as our permanent speakers, because
ये
metabolic syndrome is a
भारत का
real thing.
cardiologist है. He is a cardiologist.
Yeah, but he is a little bit of an endocrinologist as well. So
heart is also endocrine organ. You're right.
There is an endocrinologist and every cardiologist.
So we need both these people as permanent guests.
And if this doesn't appear very weird, but then we know that there are situations where fecal transplant is done for the same reason.
So so that's a whole in and by itself, fecal transplant, right? It's a now an established treatment for C. diff. Here you actually can get that prescribed. But the story of fecal transplant and Crohn's and obesity started a little bit serendipity, if you will. So this person who had exhausted all form of treatment for Crohn's disease and hardly had any relief had a fecal transplant done from a person who was a fit donor but obese. As a result of this transplant, his Crohn got much more manageable and he became obese. The person
I was about to say. Exchange ho gaya.
So that's where, and you see SF or Berkeley wanted to, so the Jihong or Gihong was a Chinese ancient practitioner who used to treat people with what was called as yellow soup.
Oh man!
Oh my!
I would not taken dinner anyway. Yeah, my question, Archana, to you is that do we have anything to measure how healthy is your gut biome? Is it anything available clinically? Because that would become a breakthrough.
Yeah, so there are companies that have kits. You can use it to measure what is the dominant form that your gut microbiome has, and it's all spectrum, right? There are over 100 types of that have been bacteria and the subtypes that have been detected, and it's like fingerprint. Every one of us has a different fingerprint, and it's so much modulated by where we live, what we do, how well we sleep, exercise. So if I had to open up a center, I would not use a kit. I would rather take good history. I would rather do a good measurement of their parameters, those metabolic markers, and I would rather recommend a change in lifestyle that builds up a healthy microbiome, and then see the changes in their biomarkers happening. And I can tell you myself, my personal experience, and this is too much information, but I think it's helpful. When women hit menopause, their metabolism changes and the weight gain happens, and the weight gain happens in a different than it did before when they had their estrogen. And it's harder to lose weight as well. And I personally would say intentional change in your lifestyle and incorporation of a high fiber diet with a good source of probiotic and having, good amount of your calcium, vitamin D, and exercise, you can lose weight. It's not impossible to do that. So it's the oral.
So let this be the dare. So is urine therapy and swallowing the live fish or something that you hear about done in some parts of India? Is that also similar to change the microbiome?
I wouldn't know.
Okay. That's like Indore में है ना वहाँ पे वो right next to the restaurant is urine therapy clinic. So my 2 or 3 questions were daily shower versus infrequent shower. Is that something you have a
So
opinion on?
I one day walked into my dermatology friend, my colleague who has the office on the same floor, his office. I was waiting for his opinion on something, and he had an info sheet for his patients there, and I just reading, and it said use a gentle shampoo for your daily shower. So when he walked in, I said, why use shampoo for shower? And he said, oh, that's because shampoos are very pH balanced because, your a good shampoo will not wash away your oils in your hair like to an extreme. So they're gentle, they're just gentle soaps. And that made me think that when we use these soaps and we scrub our body with these soap, we're really washing away. So hygiene is important, but do we need to use very, hard soaps for that? And if we go back, I remember my mama ji, not Rajesh mama ji, my mama ji used to have a massage every day on the rooftop. He would do his little workout, and he would have a nai come in who would do oil massage, and then he'll spend some time in sun, and then he would have his bath. And I would think now, as decades later, that's vitamin D, that's improved skin circulation, that's prepping your skin before you take shower, right? So to answer your question, I would still take shower every day, but just not with very harsh soaps, and use those oils to help preserve the moisture.
So that's definitely one thing I've been telling people, stop using soap except in underarms or places you get sweaty, because you're really depleting all your oil, and now we can say probiotic or bacteria also. So then intermittent fasting and correlation with so it's beneficial.
So we have this inbuilt vacuum cleaner in our body, right? It's called as mitochondria. When I became endocrinologist and really started to focus on how diet affects, my patients, I realized we are never fasting. We are always postprandial. We're going from one meal to other, and in between, we're always postprandial. And our communities, Jain communities that still have, when they practice that sunset to sunrise to sunset eating, that gave our liver time to process, clean, package, put away things. And when we do fasting, our mitochondria get revved up. They actually start doing the job that they need to do. So, those superoxidants, cleaning up of those superoxidants, it's just basically processing food in the way that it used to get processed. At this point, our liver is just barely just taking it, wrapping it, and shoving it, because the next batch is most likely going to be on its way. So intermittent fasting, weight loss, diabetes resolution. I've seen patients not just lose weight, but resolve their diabetes, correction of all your lipid abnormalities. I see people with familial hypertriglyceridemias. If they can do diet, at least they won't end up in pancreatitis zone triglycerides. So yes.
Great, thank you. Now I will take a break from questions. Ask Anurag. Is it Anurag Shairi or question? बड़े serious लग रहे हैं।
सबसे पहले मेरा आपको नमस्ते।
मैंने हाय बोला था उसको तुम्हारी तरफ से।
Anurag,
she was my first housey.
Anurag was my teacher, yeah.
वाह क्या बात है।
तेरा गट बायोम सुन करके मुझे एक शेर याद आ गया, तो वो बस मैंने इसीलिए हाथ अपना रेस किया कि सांसों की तरह तुम भी शामिल हो मुझ में, सांसों की तरह तुम भी शामिल हो मुझ में, रहते भी साथ हो और ठहरते भी नहीं।
गुड वन, गुड वन।
मेरे पास फॉलो अप शेयर तो नहीं है, लेकिन वो जो साथ में रहते हैं उन्हें ठहराने के लिए अगर हम उनका ख्याल करें तो शायद वो इतनी जल्दी नहीं चले जाएंगे।
बिल्कुल सही बात।
बहुत बढ़िया। शेफाली आ गई है और शेफाली का एक पिछले साल का एक बहुत बढ़िया है, उसपे मैं उसका फोटो शेयर करूंगी तुम्हारे साथ। और डायरिया और कॉन्स्टिपेशन पे शेफाली ने बहुत अच्छी चीज लिखी थी। शी इज अ वेरी गुड ह्यूमर राइटर। सो who else has questions? Amba?
Has a question.
Yes, yes.
It's now wonderful, such a wonderful talk. I was always confused about, and I always used to think कि अभी पढ़ूंगी, and it would always, like kind of just skip. So one thing which I wanted to ask you is, I've been wanting to research on this, but I haven't got the time. What is known as gut and psychological syndrome? Right? You have any clue on what that is?
Yeah.
And
so again, gut brain, it's a whole talk on itself. I'm not an expert, but from what I understand, how the probiotics or the food with the probiotics go through gut, and there are the chemicals, metabolites that are produced, for example, the serotonin production, helping with the mood elevation, that people claim that they feel good when they eat these foods, or they feel good when they have they take probiotics. It's actually through that. I can share research more and share that with you. I wouldn't be an expert to talk on that necessarily. But
that would be
it comes
really
to the
nice.
tryptophan serotonin pathway.
Yeah, tryptophan is the base for serotonin, but what I
Yes.
don't get is, like they say ki, tryptophan is the base for serotonin, then serotonin is produced in the gut, and then of course it is stored in the synapses, right?
Yeah.
What is the correlation, right? I can't get that physiology correct. I haven't even tried to find out, but I can't get it correct.
Every time I want to learn more about it, I end up in a new rabbit hole.
Exactly.
इतना सारा है, right? But to think of it, जैसे हम लोगों में कहा जाता है कि idli dosa is good for your stomach. Well, it is, because like the what constitutes idli dosa could be hard on stomach for some people, but when you get it pre-digested, it's got those amino acids, it's got those metabolites that help that being easy on your stomach and overall sort of like healthy. आपको पता है कि way back, idli never had rice in it, like way back. Idli was made just with urad dal. And they don't add any yeast to that, because lactobacillus is one of the most ubiquitous bacteria that's prevalent. So you can take a bunch of idli, urad dal, and put in your yogurt. It will make it into dahi. So that lactobacillus on urad would actually digest it, process it if you leave it for some time, and that the rice was incorporated to make it softer. And if you make idli just with urad, it's not as nice and gooey and soft.
So any correlation between food that is rich in probiotics and being gassy? Because like सोनू का जो famous joke होता है गुजराती लोग Handwa, Dokla, Dangela, everything is gassy. So any correlation?
So the people with irritable bowel syndrome, if they all of a sudden start eating a lot of fiber, they don't tolerate fiber food, right? They don't talk high amount of fiber in their food, irritable bowel syndrome. And that's because of the gut dysbiosis. So if I was to all of a sudden start, just instead of doing gentle and help rebuild it, you're gonna feel gassy. And again, not everybody feels gaseous when they eat dhokla and handwa, but some people do, right? And if you go back to handwa's recipe, it's got carrots and squash and all that in it, right? So that's to increase its fiber content. Again, that, good for your gut. Proteins in there, fermented food with high amount of fiber and complex starch in it. So just overall very nutritious.
So I've been telling most of my patients are South Indian from India, so I tell them to cut down on the rice and change the ratio, and they don't like it because the texture isn't the same. But that is good in some ways, like you're saying, the rice was just for softness, right? It doesn't alter the.
the अपनी जो cultural habits है वो change करना बहुत मुश्किल है. Yesterday, last night when you messaged, I was heading to temple. वहाँ पर mostly South Indian friends हैं. And we were serving food for Shivratri celebration. And there was rice and they were asking me to put ghee on it. And I said, this is against my dharma. Like in the temple, I'm doing what's not my dharma. I think what we have done is we've taken our cultural practices, but environment around us has not changed. Has changed dramatically. So we're living like we hardly walk anymore. Back in the days, in South India, in the paddy fields, and all, people were physically active. So what they were consuming, it wasn't as detrimental to their health.
So they're holding on to feel-good aspect of ancient culture, but feel-good aspect of the Western culture. So uska next question tha ki social media, will some people say laughter and social media is a way of stress reduction? Would that change the probiotic prebiotic or anything? मतलब नई जनरेशन को होप देने के लिए कुछ तो होना चाहिए ना, fast quick fix or band-aid कहीं तो होना चाहिए. This is too much work. Kombucha every day or making it, drinking it. Is there anything shortcut?
So stress causes gut dysbiosis. Social media is, I think, the source of depression and mental health disorder in young population. And so I have a very blunt no to that. There is no shortcut to life. And there is no quick fix either.
Being a pediatrician, I need something, hope. So there has to be something we can do together. Social media can be used in a good way. Like that's what they're telling us. You can't stop this thing. You can't stop this revolution. So we have to use it in some way that we.
Tell me one thing, and I, really honed it on my kids too. Our memories, a lot of our memories go through kitchen, spending time with our grandparents and eating food with them, and having what they call community meal were like part of our daily routine. So I think the change needs to start from parents. If we're going to eat healthy, so when people come to me for treatment of obesity, I take this whole intake of, how about in your family? How about your children? And sometimes the motivation factor I give them, if you change your lifestyle, it will be a role model for your kids. And they literally will eat healthy because you're making healthy food.
You're absolutely right.
So I give recipe for sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is so easy to make. I tell people I'm giving you prescription to consume natural probiotic, not a capsule. Don't waste your money on a capsule of probiotic. Make it at home. And so many patients would come and say, I love sauerkraut. I love kimchi. And I said, then go have it. Have it every day, with your breakfast as a side on your salad. Yeah.
So two things in that I have noticed that too much salt and to make it at home, again, the fish base. So I have struggled with making those things at home.
You can make without fish sauce. You can make it without fish sauce. And the salt creates that anaerobic environment for those bacteria. And I still, so pickles हम लोग खाते हैं. Pickle is another fermented food, again loaded with salt. So I haven't made kimchi at home, but if I do, I'd like to make it with less salt.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste the same, but I have been trying experimenting with that. And अचार और उसमें just last question from me, but जो फुग बोलते हैं अपन हिंदी में, जो फुग आ जाती है बहुत चीजों पे, ब्रेड पे और अचार में और वो सब, तो is there any correlation? Is there any good
That's
fug?
not, yeah, that's not good fungus. That means that your whatever that you're doing lost that anaerobic environment that this could grow. So no.
So there's
And
no truth to कि पानी पुराना पियो तो उससे आपका वो बढ़ जाएगा microbiome. There's no truth to that, right? Okay. I'm going to stop my husband from telling other people that just drink
So
old.
what about, Archana, what about so-called detox water? You just put some cucumbers and carrots, and the water becomes alkaline and all that.
I wouldn't like, they like to fancify its name so that it will sell, or the recipe will make so many hits on the TikTok. And well, I'm not on any social media.
Yeah, so
Instagram.
पानी ज़्यादा पी लो. Maybe way to increase hydration.
It just makes the water flavored. Once a patient told me I'm allergic to water, and I'm like, you're 60% water. You can't be allergic to water. So then I had to tell him, well, put something in it that changes its taste. I think that's just all there
And
is.
some kids say, I don't like the taste of water. So like you're saying, allergic. There is no taste to water, but they can sense, they can taste something in the water that may be.
Going back to the kids, if we watch the habit, I'm not saying this Western, Indian, or anything, in general, if we watch a pediatric population and if we see the acquisition of different tastes and as they grow, right? No child likes Kerala or soy sauce or things like that, right? But that's more for survival, because when you're growing up, you need source of energy. So the nature has intuned us to want to consume more carbs or fats, things like that. But that's where the role of family and parents come in, that as they grow, incorporate variety of food, variety of tastes. And then, I think people
You're absolutely right. Grassroots level पे ही change करना चाहिए. But the thing I keep running into is that parents don't have time. Parents don't have the mental health stability of guiding the kids or being the role models themselves. So it's like becoming a vicious cycle. But I have a hope, like a lot of people here are trying at their
there is
level.
an awareness.
Yeah, there is an awareness. Yes, for sure. So I would say yes. Great, but I think Sudhir also posted something in the chat. Anyone wants to unmute? Very well done. Discussion. Okay. Shefali saying she's traveling. Shefali का बहुत अच्छा sense of humor है. But Anurag, if you want more shairi, bring it.
Archana, very well done. As always, I really admire your passion and work, which, I mean, I'll probably give a little different perspective of what I think is the main issue. Living good is very difficult, living unhealthy is very easy. And unless and until whatever this Gen Z or X or whatever the next name is, it almost needs to become way of life that there is nothing better than that. And I think that may happen because I think the next generation is a little bit more aware than our generation when it comes to better health habits are concerned. Like, my kids never miss a day of exercise, which is like a genetic mutation in the Mungi family. So I think the real same thing need to happen. And when you talk about grassroots level, I think the moment something gets accepted by the next generation, it helps two generation, the plus and minus both. So, I hope industry works somewhere, because unfortunately there is no money in that, right? So that's why nobody is wanting to advertise a kombucha or whatever. So I think my hope is that, as awareness improves in many facets, this takes on to. But very well done, Archana. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
So, अर्चना तुम्हारा एक वीडियो तो भेजना ही पड़ेगा क्योंकि my hope was we'll get the recipe of your kombucha here and a technique, but if you can share anything, we'll share it with the video.
For
And
sure.
Bharat background में है, but last night or early morning in India they had a talk, and Dr. Pradeep Mehta, he made us laugh so much because he came and Bharat and few other people were going pro health, do discipline, this, that. He came and countered everything that the doctors were saying. He just came and he said, खुश
I wish I
रहो,
was attending that. I love his talks. He's
खुश रहो,
unbelievable.
मस्त रहो, ज्यादा टेंशन मत लो, इन लोगों की मत सुनो. And it was hilarious how he made people just relax. Like he was like, ये सब बहुत टेंशन वाला काम है, बहुत मेहनत वाला काम है, मत इन डॉक्टर की सुनो तुम. तो
मैम
मैं
वो वाला
मीरा हूँ.
प्रोग्राम रिकॉर्डेड है क्या?
हाँ, I'll share with you.
वो भेज देना
But
आप.
he was like a delight, and I could say for a change, I believe like what my husband tells his patients. His patients love him. They absolutely love him because he doesn't look fit. He doesn't talk about fitness. He doesn't go about do this, do that, do that. He just cracks jokes with them. And his patients keep coming to him over and over rather than going to his partner who is a marathon runner and fitness freak and scare people saying, ये करोगे, ये मर जाओगे, ये होगा. My husband doesn't do all that. तो उसकी अलग ही वो following है. So there's a balance. Like I think you cannot be extremes, but there has to be balance because
You
not
see,
everyone
I
is.
tell people, when people come to me for obesity, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? So I tell them food is, life-sustaining force, and we have made food the enemy. So I try to teach them that we have to make it a friend.
Right.
It can't be literally just become the source of comfort in the hard times, but even on your day-to-day management, it has to be that source of. So yeah, I mean, the 2017 or 18 May, I was ordering food from Chipotle on my app, and I just happened to hit the nutrition button, and one veggie burrito had 2.5 times salt that one should have. And that was last of my veggie burrito ever.
And imagine Chipotle is healthier, much healthier than a lot of other things.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that yes, we all have to live life, but the macro factors in the industry, I mean, we have to be aware, you don't want to live very dry life either, and
Right.
not
And that's
enjoy.
where Amba and Anurag's field comes in, like that individualizing and motivational interviewing or meeting the person where they are.
Yeah.
You have to constantly do pros and cons, right? Like, because you can't use generalized approach in most of these things. Like you said, no one has same microbiome either. So only if we knew the secret. But individualizing is my word that we have to individualize everything. There's no generalizing in medicine.
Yeah.
So yeah. अनुराग अनम्यूट करके एक और शायरी सुना दो, फिर हम लोग इसको भी जाने देते हैं, मंदिर जाएगी, इडली डोसा खाएगी. अर्चना
घी डाल के घी डाल के
घी डाल के.
तो वही घी डालने वाली बात पर ही बोल रहा हूँ कि दोनों दोनों मजे बराबर ले रहे हैं, दोनों मजे बराबर ले रहे हैं, मैं जिंदगी के और जिंदगी मेरे.
जिंदगी के और जिंदगी में क्या बात है, हल्का सा फर्क. बहुत बढ़िया.
इसलिए मस्त रहो, स्वस्थ रहो, और जो काम में खुश हो उसमें व्यस्त रहो.
Wonderful.
So, Archana, he said exactly the education and awareness is our role, and action has to be from the other person. Action has to come from there. We cannot do the action for anyone. But thank you. घंटी बजा के मैं recording बंद करती हूँ.
Thank you for invitation.
नहीं Archana, this was wonderful, and I think पेट नहीं भरा मेरा, वो kombucha की रेसिपी तो लगेगी ही, but thank you for taking out time and doing it early in the morning and for being there for us.
कंबूचा का जेनेसिस कहीं कम्बख्त से तो नहीं हुआ ना?
अच्छा,
I
before I
think
stop.
I think किसी mom, किसी person who was making kombucha must have said this come back kombucha.
So बर्निंग क्वेश्चन ये बच गया था कि एंटीबायोटिक के साथ प्रोबायोटिक लेने का जो है वो कंट्रोवर्सी आ रही है बीच बीच में कहीं पे. What
Yeah.
is your recommendation about that?
Didi, I really think antibiotic does such a dent on your microbiome, really, and especially the type you're taking and all.
So
So
when
you
you're taking it, like हम लोग को stop तो नहीं कर सकते. We try at our personal level not to, but when people are taking antibiotic, should you be taking probiotic with it or no? Because उसमें भी
I used to personally, I used to give my kids, dahi, make sure they have like twice, like daily dahi.
And
My
can
kids now, they're older, they are living wherever they are living, and they try to follow this, that, a bowl of dahi every day was
yeah,
important. Especially when you
great.
take, but you need to have a way to support that. Yeah.
And can it be ever dangerous? Too much of anything is not good.
So yeah, no. So probiotics, especially if you're immunocompromised, people with solid organ transplantation, we don't know how, and if they already have, say, an unstable gut biome that is not like sort of where it protects you, then introduction of these can cause damage. So yes, people say in pregnancy, I don't necessarily buy that. I may not go and take a prescription of probiotics, but I would eat natural food. Humans have been eating this food, pregnant or non-pregnant.
What's with pregnancy? I didn't know what's in.
When you go and read about it, there is said, take your doctor's advice or avoid taking these products in pregnancy. And I'm sure pharmaceutical product I would not take, but natural source. I would eat my yogurt, I would drink my kombucha, I would add my sauerkraut to salad.
Yeah. Great. Harshita, you had anything to share?
No, I just love the topic. बहुत अच्छे से नहीं सुन पाई क्योंकि आधे समय गाड़ी चला रही थी, पर घर आकर के अब मैंने थोड़ा जो लास्ट का पार्ट है घर आके सुना.
Nee, I loved
I will,
her
I
slides.
will wait for her kombucha recipe because I really don't know how to make, but I do make kanji and try to ferment my dosa idli of course.
There we go.
Or dangela, bhulna mat. Thank you again. I'll stop the
Sauerkraut
recording now.
also.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.